get what we call the decent jobs. And the decent jobs always will be done when you have the skills. Eventually, this is going to lead to poverty alleviation. And as I said, we must do the three things at the same time, or having in mind that the demand, the supply, and production of decent jobs must be hand in hand. And of course, the basis at which we are doing this through a policy directive is improve access, relevance, quality, and beyond that, not only access, but we are going to look at what you do, delivery, assessment, and certification of the graduates. And that is the reason why when we have done assessment of your institution, we normally give you what we call the maximum enrollment capacity. And I know we are trying to increase numbers to address the issues of those who are demanding opportunities for training. But let's balance this access with quality, so that again we don't over-enroll when you don't have facilities to the extent that you are going to compromise on the quality of your product. The strategies, again, we were taught about key performance indicators, that your strategies are the ones that will determine the results that you produce. And the intervention that will require in the TVET institution is to ensure that individually as institution will be contributing to the wider and the bigger call of the government, which is the access, equity, quality, and relevance, which ultimately will give us the right products that we require. Again, every step we make, it must be about quality. And we're saying quality is key to the success. And of course, I don't want to take you through definition of quality, but it is a criteria that measures the satisfaction of a product or service. And we need to ask ourselves, the quality products or processes that we are going to implement depend on which client you are seeing. If it is a parent or the student, it will depend on that processes that will be taking place during the delivery, training, delivery, assessment, certification. If it is from the perspective of the industry, it is the performance of that individual that comes out of your institution. And in this case, therefore, again, we were told in the morning, we seriously take our engagement in our institution as a business, so that we're able to monitor resource utilization and be able to have key performance indicators at every stage and every process, and you'll be able to evaluate yourself after every training cycle in terms of pass rates, in terms of success of your products. And that is why we are coming up with a system, hopefully before the end of the year, that will enable institutions to monitor their products for the next 3 years after leaving institution. And this is going to help you. If someone went through a training in your institution, and the first 6 months, the first 3 months, the first 1 month, or 0 months, because some of them may be taken in when they are still in your institution for employment. And you'll be able to, that's one indication that the program that you are delivering is relevant. If someone finishes in your institution in the first 3 months, is totally in a job, different from the skills he acquired in your institution, and maybe for several students, then that will be an opportunity for you to reevaluate and see the relevancy of that program. If someone is going to sustain that trade line in your institution for the rest of 3 or so years, then there must be something, an indicative of the quality, relevancy of the program that you're going to do. We look at it in different lenses. If it is a user or customer or a client, then we are looking at it as quality as usability or fitness for use and of a product or a service. If we are looking at it from the eye of the producer of the service, a point of view, then you are looking at the quality as the compliance or conformity with the specification, and quality is a fact, we also told in the morning. And then the absolute point of view is actually looking at it in quality in 360 degrees. Is quality is a measure of product quality in absolute terms, such as good, bad, satisfactory, or excellent. Of course, we have the input and output, but the critical part of it are the processes that will inform the input. And this is training and support processes, leadership and management, and again will be very critical in establishing management and governance capabilities of your institution as one of the critical components of quality assurance. And together with the other agencies, we will be defining what will govern the TVET sector and move towards building the capacity of all our managers to be able to obtain the output that we require. Now, in the standards, regulations, tools, and support that we have done for quality assurance, as authority, we are in the process of completing what we call TVET Quality Assurance Framework in the next 1 month or 2 at most. This is going to define all the parameters that will be looking at it in terms of developing the quality assurance in our institution. We've already completed 2 critical manuals that we will be sharing with you soon. The quality, what we call the quality assurance manual for the regulator that will be using to monitor the sector. And we have also completed one called Quality Management System for TVET institution. This is the manual that will be helping you to run our quality system in your institution. And as I said, we want the ownership to be in the institution, and what we will only be coming is to just confirm that this is going to be determined. How then do we rate and run our institution in terms of facilities, infrastructure, and many other resources that you have, like the human resource, the innovation, the collaboration for competence-based education and training. And then we'll have these ones, we have about 10 criteria that we'll be looking at. That is program and what we call the unit descriptors, elements of competence and duration. This is what guides the curriculum development, or what we call program development, learning outcomes, training delivery methods and modes, entry requirements, range and statements, tools and equipment, infrastructure and trainers, evidence guide, and what we call the assessments. And again, we will be taking you through on even how you keep this, because when audit is done, sometimes you do audit when assessment has already been undertaken. So what kind of records? Then what we call the underpinning knowledge and skills and certification. Then how do we link the CBET and quality assurance? We are looking at identification of competencies jointly with the industry, and that one is already taken through. Then how could the students with the necessary competencies? This is through the delivery mode. and program development, and then how to deliver units, programs, and properly and quality assured. Again, that one we are looking at it, quality assurance, as I mentioned, system and quality management system, and eventually what we call monitoring of the system. We also have what we call 4 Ps, and this is when you have what we call know-how. Know why is actually the attitude. You have know what is the knowledge, and you now have know-how is the skills. And we have always been talking of attitude, skills, and knowledge. If you combine knowledge or attitude and skills, you have performance. If you have attitude and knowledge, and this is basically what current system is, knowledge-based, you only have the purpose. And when you combine knowledge and skills, you have the process. And you have the 3 of them, knowledge and attitude, knowledge and skills. You have the ability for new products, and that is what we're calling our 4 Ps: performance, purpose, performance, process, and product. That is one manual I have mentioned we've developed, and we have 4 chapters in that manual. One is the quality assurance, which is the introduction and definition of all the quality assurance. Then regulations of external quality assurance, which is done by the regulator. And then the tools for quality assurance. And then personnel and processes of the quality assurance. This is one of the, and this is what most people have been asking, the processes of registration of a TVET institution, right from application, the process that goes on up to the decision that made. When you read the Act, the final decision of registering an institution lies to the board of TVETA. It's not the CEO, it's not the staff. So all the processes that goes up to doing it to the board has been shown. What we're also planning is to automate this system. And we are almost 6% done. We've designed the system. We are now in the process of building. And it's going to be automatic. You will do this in the comfort of your office. And once you fill all the processes and you submit, the normal acknowledgement letter that comes from my office, in most cases, you will get it automatically. Once you submit the application, you print the acknowledgement, and it will be able to take you through, or you can track the process of registration of your institution up to the time it is going to come for schedule, when it has been taken to the board and the decision. The future TVET system in the country, we are going to look at the cooperation of government and industry, and this is what we drive to coordinate as an authority to see how then do we have our institution collaborating with the industry. And this is going to be a requirement. If you look at the indicators that we'll be using for quality audit, one of the things is research, innovation, and collaboration and partnership with the industry. And this is what we're going to encourage. Learning within the workplace. We know, of course, there are still challenges, but part of the reason why we are going to establish collaboration with industry is to provide you with working or learning within the workplace, acceptance of national standards. The other thing is that the standards that we are developing at the moment as industry standards or sector standards, we are eventually going to pass them through the development or transiting them into national standards. And when they become national standard, that will be binding. Then qualified TVET staff. Again, we have developed what we call the TVET trainer qualification framework. We have identified all the competencies that you require, right from the person who assists you in the workshop to the manager or the top of the institution. And we hope in the next few years, we are going to use those standards now to start developing our human resource, both at the level of delivery and the management level. And I'm saying here, KTTC will have a lot of work, because we will be moving towards capacity building of our institution, of our trainers, of our managers. And I think from the presentation given in this morning, you should start rethinking of your business model. Maybe reduce training more on trade areas, leave this to other institutions, and then focus on capacity building, starting with 1 week, 2 weeks course, 1 month, 3 months, up to 9 months, because we require a lot of capacity building for this. Institutionalizing research, innovation, wide stakeholders consultation, that's one of the critical things. And we will be moving again in ranking of the institution depending on innovativeness, partnership that they will be establishing with the industries. And this is for purposes of creating a competitive environment. Then my last slide is comprehensive legal and regulatory framework to facilitate TVET. Of course, we still have a lot of legal regime governing our institution. As you are seated here, I know several of you are governed by, other than the TVET Act, other pieces of legislation. Some of the institution in line ministries, they have their own act. National polytechnics, you have the TVET Act and legal orders, for example, and so forth. So we want to see, during the implementation of this, how then do we build seamless regulatory and legal regime that will not interfere with the implementation of what we are setting. Then effective system TVET governance, as I mentioned, we have also looked at what are the competencies that we will require for governance, both at the management and either the council level or board of governance. Then strong industrial basis and international cooperation. And this is for getting some of the industries we have actually have international setting. One of the things again that we will be looking at is how best can you move your programs into international programs. Most of you have been collaborating with other institutions, especially those who are under CAFE program. You have seen about 30 to 40% of the students in their campuses are foreign students. Can we start within the local setting and thinking? How many of you can attract students from the neighboring countries? And this can be done by coming up with very unique and competitive programs. Scan around, see what is required across, and be able to do that. And if you are one of the institutions that will be doing that, then you will be in a different level from other institutions, because you have you'll be thinking outside the box. And finally, sufficient funding of TVET by government, private sector, and so forth. So we should also be able to evaluate our requirement and be able to know how much can we get from government, how much can we get through collaboration with the industries, and be able to get the resources that we require. And as I mentioned to you, in the next 1 month we are coming up with what we call the National Quality Assurance Framework. And the first aspect of that framework will be looking at the governance and issues of policy. The other one is industry collaboration. We'll be looking at the competence-based training. Then Kenya National Qualification Framework. How then do you link the framework with the the training curriculum and the framework? Then TVET quality assurance standards. Then TVET delivery and assessment system, research and cooperation, in which I was saying research, innovation, and cooperation. And in that case, we will be addressing the quality culture. And I always say that if you don't develop a healthy quality culture, culture will eat your strategy for breakfast, your technology for lunch, and your human resource for dinner. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. How are you? Yes, let me say that I am pleased to join you in this special occasion where Katti has undertaken the responsibility of both building capacity for the registrars, the deans, and the new to assure you that we are on course. The ministry is determined to help you, and we are working very hard. When I say every department must have a partnership with at least two, don't think that you are going to work alone. We are supporting you. And one of the people who has been spearheading this is our PS. He has been having roundtable meetings with the institutions in different areas. He might also come to an institution. We are supporting you to get that. So don't worry. I want to invite the PS to give his remark for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Indeed, I'm very excited to be here today with you to discuss reforms. And I've been with you since part of the later part of the morning, and we've seen the tremendous efforts that we've all put together as a team in where we are today, both from the government side, the quality assurance, the policy side, and of course from some of the briefs that you've provided on the Big Four from your side. And it's incredible today that we have made considerable progress. But ladies and gentlemen, if we now look at what we've done and where we're going in a larger context, and specifically to the theme of this conference, analyzing TVET reforms and training for the Big Four agenda, there's a call for collective collaboration and collective involvement now as we go forward. The team spirit that we all hold towards TVET. Put your hands up if you're a TVET champion. Now look around you. Everyone's put their hands up. You see, so we're all TVET champions, and this is remarkable. And I think this is incredibly special. It's special in the context of what we're embarking on, the Big Four, because if you analyze, for those of us who have been in service over the last 6 to 12 years, there's been tremendous progress in this country under our National Vision 2030. The progress that we've seen in the three key pillars, the politics, the involvement and the evolutionary process that we've seen, where we're now focusing more nationally on issues, that we are collaborating together towards the negativity of ethnicity, the addressing of aspects of corruption, the promotion of national cohesion. Why do I mention all of this? It's because there's a direct link to what we do as institutional structures from a TVET perspective. After all, we develop the next level of human capital development. And so this link is there primarily for us to appreciate that what we do within TVET institutions has a broad repercussion throughout this country. The increasing unity of purpose, the efforts towards various leaders to shake hands, there's a collective spirit. And I think personally I'm extremely excited about the progress that's being made. On the social aspects, we've seen that governance has promoted greater participation, that devolution takes place, and within the devolved government, your TVET institutions rest, thereby promoting greater autonomy, greater responsiveness, greater community spirit of your institutions to serve the people, to serve a farmer, to serve a child, to serve all stakeholders. It's that integration, it's the ability to promote a greater level of synergy in the development of TVET and its partnership and commitment to all stakeholders. On the education front, there's been almost 100% enrollment in primary level, and we are now addressing aspects of quality and relevance On the health front, we've seen aspects that are highly promotive, where we see hospitals all around the country. All aspects of utilities have risen, from electricity to households to all key functions, thereby progressively showing you that we're transforming as a country. We're transforming from where we were 15 years ago to date, and it's in a dynamic way, to the extent that even the economics of this country are on the growth side. This has a direct relationship to what you do within TIVET, because as our economy grows, there's a requirement, and a definite requirement, for more skilled people, and this then informs the development of industry or the service sector. We see this in concrete terms. Almost 15 years ago, we were using something like 100 megawatts. Today, our capacity in electricity has risen to 2,400 megawatts. But we are somehow related to all of this, because as TIVET technicians, we're part of the implementation of power projects as well as the maintenance and the transition. We've seen all manners of infrastructure projects within this country, from cargo, ports, airports. Our usage of ports has increased. For example, if you look at the airports, they've risen from 1 million to 7.6 million. 7.6 million people now. That's our turnover. Our cargo has risen to 30 million containers. The ICT usage too has increased tremendously, and more the application of phones and so on. This has made a tremendous impact on our GDP, our tax base, our budget. All of these are now within the trillion, where once they used to be in the billions. But while we've developed all this capacity, and while the government has invested so much on infrastructure, very little has been, or not as much has been achieved in terms of how we distribute, how we ensure that the wealth is developed to all the people in this country. And so the Big Four, ladies and gentlemen, tries to address that by ensuring that for the first time nationally, and that we're extremely excited, we have an actual focus. If you look at agriculture, for example, 70% of our livelihood is dependent on agriculture. But what remains is that we're able to promote greater value addition. If you look at certain crops like pyrethrin, you can attain 26 times the value if you provide value addition. It's all about productivity and value addition and innovation and efficiency. That's what the Big Four is now demanding of us in all aspects, whether it's housing, where we're trying to increase and create innovative models for greater access of housing and to ensure that housing is affordable. All of this is interlinked and has a tremendous impact on how we innovate and promote the next generation of improvement. And that really, ladies and gentlemen, is a brief of where we are and why the excitement exists and the importance of TIVET in our development as a nation, and how all of us should be now keen to promote a greater patriotism to the development of the Big Four, and how our purpose and value as TIVET practitioners is of significance in the overall development of this country. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome the CS. Thank you very much. Thank you. And so the context of our involvement and our